Jamie Henson. We have Ed Kennedy here with us today to visit about the Vista program. Ed, thank you so much for your time. Let's get started. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, my background as it relates to education is close to 40 years, and I've worked with kids from kindergarten up into college. And most recently, I retired after about 13 years as a school superintendent. And then, of course, as you know, got tied up with Carl Albert State College on some grant writing projects, which morphed into this Vista project. And it's really exciting, and I'm excited to explain some of the things that Vista's doing or Vista's going to do in the Sequoia and LaFleur County areas. So
Okay.
that's my background, and I've been doing some grant writing stuff, so it was a natural segue to look into some of the things going on with Vista.
Okay, tell us about Vista. What purpose does it serve?
Vista is tied to the AmeriCorps program, and they've been around since the early 60s. And Vista stands for Volunteers in Service to America. So they have many Vista programs going in different programs in different places around the nation. Oklahoma has several going on, but we are the first one at Carl Albert to have a Vista program tied to higher education and then ultimately serving school districts in the region. So it's got its own little unique flavor, but that's what Vista is. The Vista personnel are paid a housing allowance. They're not paid a salary or a stipend. They're paid a housing allowance. And our program is unique in the fact that we're using, in many instances, retired educators to work with the education community. And I can explain a little bit of that as we move forward. But that's what Vista does. So it's very overarching. The AmeriCorps programs are federally funded, and so there are several different options and several umbrellas it can fall under. And ours is for educating people in this region, and then we have a Healthy Futures component in that as well.
Okay. How did you learn about Vista? What is your experience with them?
It's kind of interesting. Years ago, I ran an after-school program, and as part of that program, the State Department of Education contacted me about writing a best practices in after-school program. And so I did that for a couple of summers as kind of a side gig. And it's funny on the grant writer part of it too. My background, I have 0 college hours in composition or English. I had great high, I didn't realize at the time, great high school English and English teachers, and they just did a fabulous job, I guess, because I was able to test out of all of my college English classes. And so for me to come full circle now and be considered a writer or have that experience level, and so the State Department with the 21st Century program asked me about doing some of these best practices, and one of the best practices came out of Norman, Oklahoma, and the University of Oklahoma, and some of their students were working in the after-school program under the Vista umbrella. And so that's when I first found out about it. I then was a superintendent in far southeastern Oklahoma, and I served on an interlocal cooperative board and took the Vista program to them, and because I thought this is really amazing, and they could really help our schools that were members of this interlocal cooperative, and introduced it. And a year or so later, they actually adopted the program and rolled it out. And then when I moved to northeastern Oklahoma to the Tahlequah area as a superintendent, I reached out and said, could I have Vista personnel in my school? And so I essentially at one time had about between 15 and 20 Vista workers on my school campus that my school really wasn't having to pay for. They were doing things like child nutrition expertise or lesson planning for health and wellness, or I even had a retired librarian that was working and supporting our library resources and some of our reading initiatives at our school. So that was the education component that Vista did, and Then the next years, I was able to even have some summer staff helping doing summer projects that always take place. So my Vista background truly goes back to about 2009, 2008 or 2009, back in that time frame. And I say that, or I give that information because after working on some of the grant projects and the programs with Carl Albert, we had done some grant surveys with superintendents in LaFleur and Sequoyah County asking about need and what services they need, and we were looking at writing a particular grant. We ended up not writing the grant, but the surveys gave us great information about the need in school districts and what was going on. And so we talked about that internally, and President Faulkner had even heard about, at the state level, he'd heard about the Vista program and why it wasn't being used in Oklahoma in higher ed. I think the higher ed chancellor, I believe she came out of Kansas, and she asked why weren't any Vista programs in place. And he was wise enough to say, we are working on that right now. And so about 2.5 years ago, we started the ball rolling on this Vista project and then got it approved about 1.5 years ago. And our project officer came down from the state, met with our Board of Regents and talked about the Vista program and how it would be used. And then we were ready to get the final authorization and actually put pencil to paper and show what the Vista program would do. And it all came about based on looking into needs assessments and working with administrators in Sequoyah and LaFleur County about what they might need or how Carl Albert State College could possibly help them.
So these programs are really filling a void for higher ed and our local schools.
They are. They have a bridge, and we were wise enough in our application to also include careers and the Career Techs, Indian Capital Technology Center in Sequoyah County and Kiamichi Technology Center down around the Podo area. And then we also included the Choctaw Tribe, and we included the Cherokee Tribe, and the education resources and the workforce resources that they have. So it truly, the EC3 program is truly a wraparound service where we can work with students throughout Sequoyah and LaFleur County. And when I say work with students, we don't do direct service, but the Vista personnel are doing planning and resources and supporting the initiative of counselors and principals in school districts. And so that's kind of a long or a convoluted answer to how this grew. I liken it to the fact that we've got an airplane in the air and it's flying, and it's not quite yet completely built. We're working on it as it flies, so that's been kind of an interesting concept.
Well, in regards to this concept, tell us more about the Vista Early College and Career Connections program.
Yeah, I abbreviated that when I said the EC3 program, excuse me. But what we've done is we have specialists that work with schools in the county, and they work with counselors and they work with principals and to a degree superintendents. They attend the county superintendent meetings and all of those things. And it's funny because even as well known as our group of Vista members are, the school district still couldn't believe we're getting this support for nothing. Y'all are helping us, y'all are helping us make phone calls, y'all are helping us set up events, y'all are hosting things at Carl Albert, and none of this is costing us anything. And it really didn't. So we have a retired school superintendent, we've got 2 retired school principals, we've got a retired educator that is also tied to the Sallisaw Chamber of Commerce and one of the local scholarship organizations here locally. And they are all working, and they're going out doing things like helping with concurrent recruitment. They help Stephanie Qualls out of your office doing concurrent enrollment stuff. They're doing some stuff with financial aid workshops. They're working with the Gear Up programs at both of the campuses to help in schools. I know Muldrow School District had a recent Gear Up program, and they called it Future You, and our Vista staff was there to support and help out. And then similarly, we're working with, it's not just college-bound students, we're working with those counselors on a program called ICAP, and that's it's a program through the Oklahoma State Department of Education that has many valuable resources, but the counselors don't have time to do it. And we are supposed to start with sixth graders on ICAP. It is a college and career portfolio or plan that each kid is supposed to have, so that by the time they graduate from high school, they have a concept of what they want to do or how to go about a career, and get specialized training, or how to go to college. And so with that said, that program really has resources or the personnel resources that we can gather some of those things, and we can support those counselors and principals. And we really started rolling with this really in January of this year. We had a few people on board, and I didn't mention we've got a retired vice president from higher education, and he helps work with those pathways that make those connections between the concurrent classes and or what college route the kids need to take. So with that all said, we've got those resources out there in regard to personnel that can be there, that can help the schools, that can help when they have, as I said, a financial aid event or a parent awareness event, some of those kind of things, and they can essentially be champions for these schools to let kids understand and let them know that, hey, here are the options, and here's the way you go about finding out your path or deciding what you want to do. Now, the trick to that, as I said, or where I started with that a moment ago, is we've really just been rolling with this since January. So this year, the real focus or the real connection for us has been what can we do with high school seniors, because they're in the hot seat right now. They're the ones that we've got to make a decision in how we move ahead, and whether they go to a career tech or go to OSU IT, or whether they go to college, or whether they go and do an apprentice program working in a local business or working for a contractor or something of that nature. So that has been the concentration this year. Our summer will be spent with these Vista members. Because of their experience, they will be able to set up things and kick the school year off with a little bit of more of a focused and a planned calendar, for one thing, on when these things need to take place, and talk to kids about timelines and things like that. And we'll also be able to start working with younger kids and working with those schools to do things. And so far in Sequoyah County, our staff, while they've been divided east and west, they have been in every school in Sequoyah County. They have had counselors meetings. They have met with principals. They have met with the superintendents. As I said, they've gone to superintendent meetings and gotten on the agenda. They've been at the Carl Albert Board of Regents meetings. And then they've done volunteer work in the community. The Martin Luther King Day of Service, they were involved in some things there. They did some stuff with Angel Tree before the Christmas holidays. And so their presence in these schools, and the fact that they're all people that everyone in the community knows, has just been wonderful for us. And the intent is that we'll be able to roll this out and get it started in LaFleur County. We've already got a few possible candidates. We've got a retired superintendent that is serving as a high school principal now. He's getting ready to retire again, but he's expressed an interest in going to work for the Vista programs and serving some schools in LaFleur County. And then there's another gentleman down there that does have Vista experience that is doing that as well. And then additionally, the grant was written for us to bring 14 people on board, and we've got 7 people on board now. We additionally get to add a marketing specialist, and then we get to add a couple of specialists that work with health and wellness, to work with Carl Albert, to work with the school districts, and to work with communities to host health fairs. So there's the typical Ed Kennedy long answer. There's a lot of different roots in this tree, and we're kind of just trying to get it planted, watered, and get it going right now. And the growth is great.
You've kind of established a supportive dream team of educators and people that can open doors and assist those counselors and any of the educational gaps, because there are many right now.
Right. And you're spot on. Most Vista programs are designed, for instance, there's one at Southern Arkansas University, and it uses graduate students. And they do things like food bank and clothing bank and things like that. And it's a fabulous program. Mm-hmm. But for us, the knowledge base and the instant credibility that these retired educators bring is just makes sense. And then the other thing for us that made sense, and why we started in Sequoyah County, was one, your partnership with us to give us office space as we needed it, and some of those kind of things here at the Carl Albert campus, but also for them to be able to, we had a Vista member base that expressed an interest very early. Some of the relationships I have with some of the Vista members go back longer than I'm willing to admit, but I already told you I had about a 40-year career in education, so one of those relationships goes back that far, and the other one goes back to one of the principals from 1995. Mm-hmm. And of course, our retired superintendent from Muldrow, she and I were superintendent colleagues, and before that we were colleagues running 21st Century After School Program grants. Mm-hmm. So we had that base in place, and it was just an easier, more streamlined process. Sure. In Sequoyah County. The other thing is, much of Sequoyah County is up and down I-40.
Right.
We're going to have a challenge in LaFleur County because LaFleur County is so big.
And LaFleur County is a huge county, has a lot of small schools, but schools that really need that support.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yes, in fact, we didn't know that we would need to, and I was a K-8 superintendent, we didn't know we would need to reach down to K-8s.
Sure.
And as we started rolling this out, we found very quickly that we did. One of the reasons is because the K-8s need to use some of the same testing and some of the same ICAP resources that the high schools in Sequoyah County are using, because that's where their kids are going. Mm-hmm. So they need to use something that has a commonality from school to school.
And you can't start too early with those students as far as career planning and learning and tracking what they might be interested in, especially in these rural communities. You know, you have a lot of low-income first-generation students that don't have that support at home. So exploring those careers early on can be really beneficial for them, I'm sure.
Well, and for us, that was precisely one of the things I wrote in the application. We first have to have a concept paper approved. Does it meet the Vista criteria? Does it address the Vista goals? And then once that concept paper is approved, you do the application. It's very detailed, very extensive, but it gave us great vision, or it aligned us and gave us a good focus on what we wanted to concentrate on, and it was the socioeconomic issues and the education, that if we provide those resources, it would help out. You know, like this year, one of the things, and I know parents of seniors in high school are just, they're losing their mind on this stuff, but every kid, as a graduation requirement at the state level, as you know, has to complete a financial aid application. Yes. And that, of course, is based on mom and dad's tax returns. Mm-hmm. That are just now getting completed.
Right.
So, and we've got many students that are going and using career tech right now, or going to work for family members, or going to the military or something like that, and they don't understand, but that's not in your hands. And that's, our Vista people have done a great job as Vista members explaining to schools, explaining to parents, explaining to families that it's just a requirement, and they're trying to help out and make that happen.
Well, it sounds like Vista's filling a void that was large and was a great need for that program.
Yeah, it was one of those things, a lot of times we don't know what we don't know.
That's right.
And as we did that needs assessment on some of that, it didn't surprise me, having been a superintendent, to hear them making those comments. And then the wheels had to start turning, and we had to start having conversations. Mr. Nowlin and you and I and Jay, and we've had those conversations. What can we do to help them? And the first thing we have to do at Carl Albert is to understand that the Vista people aren't on staff to answer the phone and to run copies and stuff like that. And especially with the skill set that this group has, it really is, they can bring wisdom to a room in just a matter of moments. And once those counselors and principals have figured out that it really is free, it's not costing Carl Albert anything,
Right.
Some computers, email addresses, and some copies, and that's about it. It really is a fabulous program that is just win-win. And maybe things like this video and some of the outreach we're doing, we will let people understand the magnitude of what can happen and how this project can really help out. And we've got in fact, we're in the continuation grant phase right now to extend it. We've only been rolling with it for 6 months, and here I'm having to apply for next year, but we can roll this thing as long as 3 years, and even better than that, we can grow it beyond 3 years as it morphs into something else when we
Sure.
see another need. So that's why we want to do a good job with it this time around.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's excellent. I can't wait to hear back from you in 3 years. We'll do an update and hear all the progress you've made.
Well, I hope you have some insight, some input on what we can do as we morph, and that's been the beauty about this. The project officer, Patricia Christensen, has just been wonderful. She's held our hand every step of the way, and she's also allowed us to adjust and do things a little bit differently. For instance, we did not have on our initial application, we didn't have anything for K-8, and we started talking to her about that. And so we've added, and that's a retired principal that is working with the K-8 schools, which there are many in Sequoia and LaFleur County.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so that's so we've got that ability to be flexible. So you just keep thinking about the things and how we can help, and the things you see that these students in Sequoia County, that the roadblocks, and you listen to what people in the schools are saying and what teachers and administrators are saying, and we'll respond to it because we've got that flexibility, thankfully.
Yeah, that's great. That is
Yep.
great. Well, any other closing remarks?
Nothing, we're just excited, and it does have tremendous potential. I'm excited about rolling it out in LaFleur County, and I'm really excited about Jay taking back some of this stuff to the regents for higher education and letting them hear some of the stuff that's going on. It kind of goes hand in hand. Holly's getting ready to do the news release on the cybersecurity training that you guys hosted down here.
Yeah.
We have been the only institution in the state and the only training site in the eastern half of Oklahoma. So Carl Albert's doing some cool stuff, and we need to let those kind of things be known back at the state level or with our legislators anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you.
And
I enjoyed being here.
it was great to hear from you, and we look forward to all the progress learning about it.
These are pretty cool things. Thank you for including me.
Yeah.